Welcome to the original podcast, I guess you could call it, for the CSGO subredding, betting subreddit. Sorry, I'm Top Soul Man, one of the moderators, and I'm with the Prince Plays, a very, very, very good contributor to the subreddit. And we're just going to go on a little bit about some of the stuff that's currently happening. We like to do this podcast as sort of like a recap or something where we could kind of go over the last week of betting, the future roster changes, things of that nature. So this is going to be our first kind of foray into it. This is a dry run. We're just going to kind of go at it and see what comes out of it. So if you guys have any things that you'd like to see, anything that you think we could improve, we'll definitely be reading the comments and hopefully adjusting in the future. But I guess we're going to start here with the Dreamhack major. Just recently, obviously that was won by TSM. I mean, sorry, by NV, and they played very well in the tournament, and it seems like they're the hottest team. And they just recently became the number one team on HLTV, taking over the spot that was previously held by TSM. So TSM had a little bit of a disappointing tournament. I don't know. There were some things here and there that that whole tournament to me was kind of odd. I didn't do that well from a betting perspective, and it just was hard to predict. I'll say that much. I mean, I didn't do that well in the pick'em. I didn't do that well in the fantasy teams. It was just a nightmare for me.
I mean, definitely, yeah. But a lot of teams which we thought would get out at group stage or in the quarterfinals definitely made it way farther than I expected. LG made it pretty far. G2 definitely made it very far into the tournament.
Yeah,
Um,
G2 got to be the surprise of the tournament for sure.
yeah, am I missing anything right now?
No, I mean I'm sure there's a bunch of stuff that that happened throughout the tournament and teams that were disappointing. Like I said, TSM kind of was a little bit disappointing, losing in the quarterfinals. But even like teams like Liquid, the North American choke. I mean, Luminosity came out and did great, and G2 came out and played very, very, very well. NiP had a resurgence amidst all the rumors that are going on about them. So, I mean, there's a ton of stuff, and I'm sure we missed something, but we're kind of going over the whole like thing as a whole rather than the individual parts and pieces. But mostly, I just wanted to kind of talk a little bit about how G2 and NiP and like some of those teams that came up and did better than expected. I mean, I just wanted to say a few things about them and kind of like touch base on what those two teams are going to be doing to change in the future, because I believe that G2 and NiP are actually going to kind of merge, and I think the rumors are true that Get Right is going to come to North America.
I'm not sure about the Get Right going to North America rumor, but I think that G2 and NiP will definitely merge. With NiP having problems with their organization right now, with the organization owing the team money, also with the owner going down with fraud and stuff. Everything okay over there?
Oh yeah, I just muted my mic real quick because I was gonna grab something from the room. But no, yeah, I definitely trust. Like, here's the thing: there's a couple different things, scenarios that are taking place with the NiP fiasco. On the surface, you're looking at something that's going to have legalities to it, right? So these players sign contracts. They're going to be in a certain way. They're loyal to the company that pays them, which is understandable. But at the same time, they're probably one of the most long-standing CS teams, the most popular CS team in the world. And unfortunately, they are kind of getting the short end of the stick when it comes to business dealings. And NiP, the organization, is not nearly as big as some of the other big names like Liquid or Fnatic or TSM. Those are multiple branching, like they
Uh,
go into all different esports.
but I mean, just let's go with the team performance wise and how it would affect with CS:GO betting. Personally, I think NiP is a great team. They put up really good performances, but with how NiP is currently doing right now, they're not consistent at all. They win against really good teams right now that you might consider top in the world, but they're also losing games where they're expected to win.
Well, I mean, okay, so what does that mean? And that's why I kind of brought up the business side of it, because I didn't they always perform at lands. But with this thing going on in the background as a distractor, it seemed like they might kind of underperform, but they didn't. And I think that in a betting sense, you have to be really careful when you're going in on NiP anytime in the near future. Obviously, they just recently got replaced or they pulled out of the San Jose tournament, so like they're not going to make the trip to North America in order to be here to play in a big time LAN event. So it's kind of like I mean they're kind of in a lot of turmoil, and I would expect within the next month to month and a half that the G2 roster merges with NiP. And from my expectations, I believe that Freiburg will probably retire. Get Right will come to North America, and then the NiP roster will be something like Rain, Jacob, Michael, Forrest, and Alu, maybe. I mean, that's kind of like my perspective on it. And if that changes, that's going to be the single biggest change of this quarter of Counter Strike. Obviously, earlier we had the Envy and Titan
Uh,
Swapperino, but that's going to be huge.
the Envy swap, I think that was mainly one sided. Envy has definitely got their team right now, I think, is probably one of the best teams in CSGO right now. Definitely beating Fnatic, which is in a slump, and I think arguably some people might say TSM currently is like one of the only contenders for Envious, but even then, TSM it does not look that strong right now to me. I mean, they have good players, but I mean at the land they just didn't perform as I thought they would.
I mean, it's a major. TSM is constantly since the longest time they've been going to the quarterfinals of a major and just losing. So that's kind of like their track record. And I feel like that team is built to succeed online a lot of the times, and they don't have the greatest track record for the LAN events. But I also feel like TSM is an incredibly talented team and one of the top. I think overall they're better than Envy, but they can't quite put it together on a LAN tournament and come out on top. And that Envy lineup is very, very, very strong. But going forward, I think people are going to adjust to their play style and kind of, I think make a very, very,
Yeah,
very good case for number one team in the
I think
world.
with Envious having a new playstyle and like without them doing the force buy every single thing, like how they're not predictable as anymore with Kenny S on the team now. And but I mean, even then, like their team is just really. I mean, you can like each of their player, you can expect them to clutch. It's something that it's a given at this point. Um, Something else, let's not talk about teams slumping at the LAN anymore. Teams that really did show up. LG, I think their performance at the LAN was great. Cold and Fallen did not show up that LAN. I think Cold
No.
and Fur really did like do the difference with their team. Cold showing up with the 20 something kills first half versus Cloud9, and again he just showed up at versus the Fnatic game on Inferno too.
Well, the thing about LG is like they went through that team change and they lost that ZKQS or I think that's his name. Like they lost him and then they replaced him with Cold. And like Cold is like quite from what I've seen, LAN online, all this stuff. He's one of the best players I've seen in this game, and to couple that with Fur, really established IGL like Fallen, and then to support that with two role players really goes a long way towards making that team very solid and strong. Now, even today, there's LG just beat Titan today in the Sivo LAN, and you just saw Cold go off, and it's just like this guy is just he's I don't know where they found him or what teams he was playing on beforehand, but he's just really 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 good, and that is the difference between them finishing in the top 8 of a LAN and then finishing going home in the first qualifying rounds. And so I really think that LG is a team to be reckoned with in the future going forward. They're very 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 good, and they could dominate pretty much any NA competition that they have, but even more so, they do compete at LANs very solidly.
Another thing, adding to what you say, Cold being such a good player. The thing is, right, Fallen is their main opper for LG. But the thing is, when Fallen is not performing, Cold can pick up the op and still get a lot of kills with it. Like, he is really good with the op, too. And I think that's also another factor that won LG versus Cloud9, which was Cold picking up the op and getting those kills when Fallen couldn't.
Yeah, no, he stepped up and did everything he could to help the team, and I feel like they came in, and I think they did as expected, at least what I expected, LG to perform and get out of the groups, get into the final 8, and just to try to make their push to try to win. Of course, they ran into some very hefty competition towards the end there, but I mean, you can't really expect, with your main opper being very underwhelming. You can't expect to go on and beat Guardian. Like what's going to happen? Guardian was on fire in that land, and he basically won a lot of people, a lot of the pick'em challenges or the fantasy challenges.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think about Kenny S though? Just speaking of like the oppers, do you think Kenny S showed up at this LAN?
It's weird because Kenny S is he's the greatest opper in the world. You know, at any given moment, he could be the greatest opper. But I think he was deferring a little bit to Happy and like allowing him to use the op. And I think that it was very, very indicative of their future play styles that Kenny S is going to. They're going to have a double op setup, but they're also going to utilize a very, very, very loose setup with the Happy as the passive op, as opposed to Kenny S, who does his kind of like hybrid passive and aggressive type of a deal. I think Kenny S performed okay at the tournament. I think the best player on Envy a lot of the times was Apex. Apex in his solid pushing and his just insanely aggressive plays really won them a lot of games.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. Virtus Pro looked very well until they lost to G2. In the Virtus Pro versus Titan game, Virtus Pro just looked very nice with their players. And I still can't believe they lost to G2. I believe they lose to G2.
Yeah, that was a huge upset, and it was a 2-0. Like G2 beat the shit out of them too.
But
It
I
was kind of
mean,
like hard.
in history, I mean, looking back at the last major or qualifier, I'm not sure which one it was. Was it a major? Virtus Pro also got destroyed by G2 at that 16-0.
No, that was I believe that was an online match, and it was like some sort of like
No, it was
ESL
no, it
match.
was a LAN. It was a LAN. I definitely remember it was LAN. It was the same game that Envious completely showed up. I think. Oh
Well,
no!
I
It wasn't Envious. It was Cloud9 that showed up at that point. Sorry, my mind
huh.
just.
Well, I remember, I recall former Kingwin, now G2, coming out and destroying Virtus Pro in a match, and I was on Cash, and it was 16-0, I believe. And, you know, the thing is about that is that Virtus Pro had so much momentum going in, but then there was like a break. You know, you play your group stages, you get out, you play the next day, then you play the next day. And then they had that like break between when they qualified and when they played G2.
And
And that period is really important in CS for analyzing the matches that you've seen from your
yeah,
opponents.
I
And
mean,
I
I
think
think
G2 just outstratted the shit out of them.
yeah, definitely agree. I think that's really the turning point for most teams that break if you make it 2-0 in the group stages.
Yeah, you get that little extra. You know, you don't have to play in that losers bracket game, and I think that actually could prepare you to go into the higher levels. And of course, G2, you know, they performed well. Um, and they deserve all the accolades. And there was even rumors of them dropping Fox after they got into like
Wow,
after the
Fox
major.
really showed up at that LAN, dude. Wow,
Oh
Fox,
yeah,
he showed up. And do you think that G2 is going to? How well do you think they're going to do? Speaking, let's of a new topic. How well do you think they're going to do at this new land, though? Do you think that last time was a fluke, or do you think that at CEVO season 8, do you think that they're actually going to make it further? You know.
you're
Oh
talking
no
about
no 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 no
the
the
San
San Jose,
Jose.
yeah, San Jose. Sorry,
Yeah,
God, I'm
you know,
currently
I
sick right now.
really feel like it's a something where I feel like the G2 run was a fluke in that tournament. Now, I'm not here to say and be a hater and, you know, shit on what they do, but that run was very fluky. I think Jacob, who is one of the kind of transitional players on their team, had a really good tournament, and that really pushed them over the hump. But if you go into, you know, traveling from Europe to NA, and then you're going to the west coast of North America, there's a huge gap there, obviously. So a lot of North American teams experience it going over to the EU majors, like in Cluj, like in Cologne, like in Katowice, or whatever. And this one, when you're going west, it's not as bad. But it's still, I think it could be a very big affecting thing for them. And they just recently got added to the pool of people that are going to be playing. So I don't know how prepared they're going to be, if they're going to get there in time to boot camp, if they're going to adjust to the humongous time difference. You know, I think that's like an 8 or 9 hour time differential. So I really think it was a fluke. I think Cluj was a very parity driven tournament where there was a lot of teams that were performing at their peak, and it really made it seem like the it was one of the more competitive tournaments, and G2 was the one that was performing at their highest level. But I don't think they consistently match that level from here on going forward, especially with all the rumors circulating about them and NiP. It's just I just don't see it as being something that'll sustain.
Moving on to a different topic. Well, I mean, still same topic. I think that G2 performed very well, but just looking at the gameplay that I saw, right? Just looking at the games that G2 played, they were very aim duel dependent. They weren't very strat heavy. And I think that's something that could play a factor that G2 is. I think the whole lineup of G2 is just mainly fraggers. No one really as an IGL in that team.
Yeah, that's why they hired an IGL. Previously, they had him come in and like tell him like this is what you're gonna do, and then they took the role. I believe it was Dennis who was playing the IGL in the past, and he was very good. But I mean, who knows? I think you're right about them being very frag heavy and them being individually talented, but that can come into play in majors, and I think it's a very good bet for them to kind of have that fluky run and people anti-strat against them. It's kind of like the same thing as when you see someone make a Cinderella run in the NCAA tournament as a basketball team. And for all the people who don't follow NCAA basketball, it's like every year there's always some 10 seed that goes from the beginning to the final four, and they're known as a Cinderella, and they got to the big dance and then they get shut down. And that's the same thing I feel that G2 had happen to them. They ran into Envy, they ran into uh, NiP. They would get beat by any of those teams on a good day. Virtus Pro should beat them on a good day. It's just not questioned in my eyes, at least.
I definitely agree with that, but I think that the same thing happened with Cloud9 at this tournament that these tier 1 teams, right, came into the major not preparing as well for these lower teams because look, we got TSM, we got Envy, we got Fnatic there. We got to prepare for these teams and they didn't really look into teams like LG and what G2. Navi could be on the list too because Navi isn't really taken seriously at this point until the major.
Eh, I mean, Navi's always taken seriously. I guarantee you pull any tier one team and ask them who they're afraid of playing, and pretty much any match, a team that, kind of flies under the radar. And Navi's been that way their whole entire existence. Like they've played the same. They've had a very, very similar lineup throughout. And they're just a good team, man. Like I really feel like they get underrated by the betters a lot, but in reality, if you look at their results and the major performances, they're one of the top three, four teams in the world. I mean, I think the list goes Envy, TSM, Fnatic, and then who? Virtus Pro. Do you put
No,
Virtus Pro ahead of Navi? I mean,
I mean, not okay. The thing about Virtus Pro is they'll perform when it's needed, but they have slumps and they will underperform. I mean, just talking about a betting sense, right? Not actually about the team itself. Virtus Pro has been known. We even have a golden rule about it, right? They have been known to perform under what they actually play at. When it comes to majors or lands, they will underperform online, and I think that's something that really pulls Virtus Pro from what being number one at this, or not number one, but being a lot better, higher on the list for me.
I'm going to touch on that. I'm going to touch on this whole Virtus Pro Golden Rule thing, and I just want to tell everybody that it's the team that comes up that's the Virtus Plow or the Virtus Throw, whatever you want to call them, like that team consistently places here in majors.
I
No
mean,
longer should they be considered like the betting odds are wrong, okay? But they consistently are there in majors. They
but
just don't win. They can't. Who do they have? Pasha's anchoring them down. It's like literally he is holding them back. And as much as I love Pasha, he's holding them back. Snacks is amazing. Taz can clutch and is a great IGL. He might not even IGL right now, but like that team cannot go any further. They've reached their ceiling, and they've been at this ceiling for a long time. They're not getting any better.
But I mean, you talk about them performing at lands, and I agree. Like they can't win at lands, but they can perform. But I mean, if you just look at their online matches results, it doesn't reflect of what how they do at lands. And I think that's something that you have to keep in mind when you're betting on Virtus Pro.
Oh, of course. When you're betting, like you got to play the odds on Virtus Pro pretty to the core. Like you definitely bet on them when they're an underdog, and you do not bet on them when they're an overdog. I actually lost a max bet on Virtus Pro versus G2.
Oh my gosh.
That
Not
was
this time, but last time they played, like the 16 0 game, I lost $100 on that game, and that was horrible, dude. But I mean, I did take the risk that Virtus Pro was going to be like that, and the risk didn't pay off. G2 just performed so well at that game.
well, yeah, and I mean, like collaborating that into like kind of like talking about the majors and what happens to in the betting scene following majors. We just turn around and then whoop, we got another land here, the SIVO finals, which is in Columbus, Ohio, actually. So
And then we
these
have
teams all
San Jose
travel.
coming up too. So you can't.
Well, yeah,
They're so close. They're with a week within each other. A week later,
yeah.
after this, it's the San Jose thing, or at least 2 weeks.
I think it's the 20th through the 22nd, I think. So I'm not sure exactly where, if that's right, but I'm pretty sure it's about 2 weeks. But with that said, I mean, it's like, look at the online performance. Look at how Virtus Pro lost to Orglis immediately after the major. It wasn't even close. They just got demolished. And so you have to be really careful when you're betting right after a major on these big teams. I know Envious lost to NiP in an ESL or ESEA thing. So, um, you just got to be really careful. And I've lost a lot recently. I think I'm down like $700-800 since the beginning of that major. And it's like, man, you just snowball out of control. Then you don't seem like you could win a bet, and it sucks. And I know that you fell into the same boat, and you were like trying to cash out and stuff, and
Yeah, I decided to stop
it can
it.
be
I mean,
rough.
I got some more skins back just from the throwing game, or like the suspicious throwing game, which is, I mean, something where no one can really talk about. It's third world games, or not really third world. I guess it kind of is third world, like third, not important tournaments with not important teams with, suspicious teams. So I mean, that's that.
Well, recently I've been somehow coming into information regarding people throwing and things of that nature, and I've never been a person that buys into throws. I don't call throws on every single game I see, but like it's pretty darn easy, I think, to throw in a online Counter-Strike game from like a tier 3 to tier 5 or whatever
Um,
tier like below tier 1.
I just want to go into it just about throwing really quick. I mean, this is not really what we plan to talk about, but just talk about throwing, right? There's really no sure way to tell what is throwing, what's not throwing. I by Power would have gone away if the information didn't get leaked. I mean, there was no way to prove it at that point until the chat logs got leaked, and that's what really brought I by Power down from that point. And talking about I by Power, there's a lot of players that should have gone banned, and they didn't get banned. But I mean, that's just
Well, the thing about the throws is that when you throw as a team, you throw entirely. It's not like Skadoodle when he was on iBuyPower didn't know that they were going to throw the game. Like he knew, he just didn't accept skins, and like that might have been a fortunate, lucky circumstance for him. In which case, like he's no less complicit than the rest of them. I mean, he knew about it. He probably agreed to it. Okay, I'm going to say err on the side of caution to say maybe he did, maybe he didn't. We can only go on what the facts say. But at the same time, it's like to me um, games that are played, that was a tier like 1 team with some of the best North American players. I don't think there's a throwing problem from tier 1 teams. Virtus.pro losing to Orglis wasn't a throw. It was because they weren't trying. They didn't care.
it's
You
also
should have
post
known better.
land too. So I mean, you have to take that into like or after land. So it's like what are you gonna do?
Well, I mean, you could just not bet on it, or you could bet on the underdog, which I think that one of the biggest things in betting to realize, and for a lot of you beginning bettors out there, is to really, really, really try to limit your overdog bets. When you see teams at 70-30, I mean, try to find a good underdog. Try to find something that's better than a 70-30 match between, I don't know, a tier 2 team versus another tier 2 team. Like these no problem versus reason games. Like who the fuck cares, man? Like why are you betting on the overdog in that matchup? Like the odds are that you're gonna just get mad because they lose, and then you're gonna say that they threw or something. When it's
And
like, just be careful.
going on to that, what you're saying, right? Playing the odds and everything, and not betting on these matches. If you do have an inventory secure enough, it wouldn't hurt to throw a dollar on two on these 50-50 matches and just throw it on the underdog. The matches, like these matches of 50-50 on Ding It and everything, if you just look at the win percentage for underdogs, it's pretty big. I mean, I don't know where the overdog and underdog odds come from, but those teams are almost 50, like all the time are 50-50. Um, I
Yeah, I
wouldn't.
think it's like the win percentage is like 50% of the underdogs win, which like if you look at betting analysis and how you do proper expected value bets, you definitely bet on games where you think that the odds are 50-50 when the odds are showing 70-30. So you bet on the 30% team. And you might lose, but more often than not, if you have a 50% win rate and you're betting on 30% teams, then you're going to end up with more money. You're going to end up with profitability. And that's something that you have to really understand. And that's what I see a lot of people like, how do I start over? Or like, I lost it all in this huge underdog. And it's like, come on, guys, just bet smart, bet percentages of your inventory, and try your best to make your own personal odds. You don't need to really pay anyone for betting advice if you're able to look at research and CSGO Nuts or HLTV or the subreddit that I moderate and that a lot of you guys probably are watching this on. There's sway, I guess you could call it, but then there's also really good analysis. And mostly you don't even need analysis. What you need is to look at the rosters, see if there's anything that's changed in terms of players tweeting out negative stuff or this and that, but it's like that's all on you. So you have to really make that decision and you have to come to the right conclusion and try to define your own personal odds.
And I just want to go on to the point really quick here about sway. If We already have, since this is technically a podcast for the subreddit, and there's recently been a lot of talk about what is sway, what is not sway, how do we reduce sway, and I think the main problem here is everyone looks at things that are not. You think that this team's gonna win. You look at a post and it says otherwise. You're gonna think it's sway. I mean, because it's a difference of opinion, and I think that a lot of people can't tell the difference between someone having a different opinion than you or what it's sway, right?
Well, I think that there's a common disconnect between the definition of sway and what that actually means. So, like, from my perspective, any analysis is trying to sway you to believe what they're trying to think, right? So, whether that be me saying that I think that this Dignitas versus Team Liquid game, I believe Dignitas should be the favorite, right? That's me trying to convince you. That's what an analysis is. That's me swaying you, right? But what a real sway is, what real sway that everyone is all mad about is when someone goes into a thread and intentionally gives people the wrong information and intentionally, maliciously goes out and tries to tell people incorrect stuff. That's what real sway is, and that's when you run into these problems where you might get convinced. But that's you, man. You got to take accountability. You got to take responsibility. If you're
And
like 16 years old and you're trying to say that, like, oh my God, I need someone to help me bet, it's like, no, you realistically just need to do your own research.
yeah, I mean, definitely, if you read some information, turns out wrong or it's not right, don't blame it on anyone other than yourself. You yourself are supposed to go and check it and, make sure that, um, that information is accurate and right. And I guess that just going overall, at the end of the day, if you make a bet and you lose, it's your fault. You placed that place bet button. It's nobody else's fault. Don't blame the analyst. It's your fault for betting in the first place. And I think that's something that it's really important to mention because a lot of analysts that I know are getting hate for posting in for games that they have no control over, and they just think this person's gonna win, and they don't win. So I think at the end of the day, it's your fault if you lose, and that's something that you should take into think about before you hate on some people.
Yeah, and like a lot of analysts are literally doing this for free and they're trying their best to inform people and all you do is throw shade at them and try to make them feel like they like that. How do you think that if you were put in their shoes and you just put a lot of effort into something only to have the first person come out and be like, you're a swayer, you're an idiot. It's like, dude, just chill. Like, and another thing that I want to point out is like, don't blame the analysts. Don't blame the players either, because there's so many of these players that just they take it so negatively that eventually we might even lose the ability to bet because someone's going to do something fucking crazy, and then it's going to end up with regulations and restrictions and this and that. So it's like be calm, chill out, and just kind of have a good time. Try to enjoy yourself. It sucks to lose. I get that. But you really have to try your best to manage your inventory appropriately and bet responsibly if you're going to bet at all. So, I mean, I don't know. I think that's a pretty good start. I think that got a lot of the stuff out of the way in terms of what we're trying to do with the podcast and try to figure out where we want to go with it. And the subreddit's going to be very involved, I think. Obviously, DePrince, he's done a lot of work here, and I can't thank him enough for doing this, setting this whole thing up. The Twitch layout, if you're watching this on YouTube, that's all him. So he did a really great job, and hopefully we could have some of you guys on as guests.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. We have a lot of space and room for guests and everything. It would be awesome to have some guests on the stream. I'm sorry if I'm a little quiet today. I haven't been feeling well this week, but I still wanted to get some content out this week. So, I mean, if I am a little quiet today, I am sorry. I mean, there's not much I can do about me being sick and all. But
Uh, I got an idea. I feel like you could eat some skins. Like print out a picture of a Vulcan, factory new, and just eat it, and then you'll feel better.
uh, I don't know how I feel about that actually.
You should feel good about it because it is the right idea. I'm telling you, man. I got everything. That's why I'm a moderator because I have good advice and I'm a, I'm a professional, as they would say. But no, all in all, yeah, like the prince said, he's feeling a little under the weather, so cut him some slack here. We'll try to make this into a weekly thing every Friday. We'll try to put something up, post it on the subreddit. Hopefully, it's not too long. I mean, give us your critiques, your honest opinions on how you think we did today, and hopefully we did a good job. But I think that's pretty much going to wrap up our inaugural podcast. Once again, I'd like to say thanks to the Prince Plays for putting this all together, and I'd like to say a special thanks to the members of the subreddit who have provided really helpful feedback on the podcast that the Popo and I did last time. I think it was really actually a very good learning experience. So thank you to all you guys at the subreddit, and I think that's it.
Yeah, I think that's it. Is there anything else we would need to say? Yeah, you covered everything, right?
I think so. I mean, as much as we can at this moment in time, we just got to edit it up and stuff. But yeah, that should be it, man. So I guess we'll tune out for now. We'll see you guys later, and have a good evening.